Amen. The reports were covering the same subject matter, but with different conclusions. Amen.
Amen.
Now, before I deal specifically with the scripture text itself, let me give a historical review so that all will clearly see why it is important that we believe the Wright report.
Yes, sir.
God made a promise to his servant Abram, whose name he would soon change to Abraham, whom he called friend some 500 plus years earlier. God promised to make Abram a great nation, to bless him, to make his name great, to make him a blessing, to bless those who blessed him, to curse all those who cursed him, and in him all the families of the earth would be blessed. In addition to these blessings, God promised him and his seed land that's fruitful, flowing with milk and honey. In later years, he established these promises in a unilateral covenant. That is, he made the covenant of himself, by himself, to himself, but for others in the process, without others being in the process. However, there was a caveat involved, which was to come to pass long before the parts of the promises would be fulfilled, the larger parts. This caveat was of twofold nature. First, Abraham would be long since dead. Second, y'all got to get that.
Yeah.
Abraham would be dead. His seed, second, would be strangers in a land that doesn't belong to them. In that land, they will be afflicted in rigorous servitude 400 years. Nevertheless, that nation whom they shall have served, God himself will judge and bring them out of that land with great substance.
All right.
The historical record is that Abraham had a son by his wife Sarah, who was 90 years old and he was 100. The son, whom they called Isaac, meaning laughter, had twins by his wife Rebekah when he was 60 years old.
Yes, sir.
One son was called Jacob, whose name was also be changed to Israel, and the other was called Esau. Esau was the elder, and Jacob was the younger. Now these same brothers were in conflict with each other almost from the time of their conception. This conflict did not diminish, but grew worse with the passing of time until at 77 years of age, Jacob, with the assistance of their mother, engaged in a deceptive act that broke the camel's back so that all remaining fellowship they may have had was gone. He feigned being his brother and stole his brother's blessing from his partner blind father. Thus became a fugitive on the run from his twin brother who had vowed to kill him at the gravesite of his father. He did not return home until 20 years later at the age of 97 years old, at which time his mother was dead. He had 2 wives, 4 maidservant wives, and 12 sons, 2 of which was by the wife whom he loved and had served 14 years for the right to marry, but who had died giving birth to her second son, Benjamin. He also had great wealth in livestock and servants. Jacob called his first son, born of Rachel, Joseph, whom he loved deeply because he was a son of his old age. He expressed his love by making him a coat of many colors. This gift from his father stirred up emotions of anger, bitterness, and hatred against him in the hearts of the 10 half-brothers born of the maidservant wife. They hated him with such compassion that they were not able to speak a single word of peace to him. And to add insult to injury, to add fuel to an already blazing fire of hatred, Joseph had 2 dreams that in his innocence he showed them and told them he would be ruling over not only his brothers, but his father and their mothers. In their hatred, they sought to get rid of him once and for all, thus ending his dream. So at the first opportunity, they sold him into slavery to a band of merchants who were en route to Egypt. Now, in order to convince their father that their hands were clean of whatever happened to Joseph, they killed a goat and took his coat of many colors, dipped it in the blood of the goat, and sent it to their father for him to identify as Joseph's coat. But when his father received the coat in his hand, it no longer had an array of colors. It only had one color, the color of blood, because the colors were covered by the blood. Beloved, when you come to Jesus and surrender your all on the altar of sacrifice laid and allow him to cover you with his blood, you will look like everyone else who has been born again and covered in his blood. There are no white folk, no black folk, no brown folk, no yellow folk, no red folk, just those who have been washed in the blood of the Lamb.
Yes, sir.
This is one of the lessons I believe we fail to see when reading the parable of the Good Samaritan. I know that scholars and theologians offer several views as to why the priests and Levites didn't administer any medication to the wounded man on the Jericho road. Some say the priests and Levites refused to give aid to the beaten man on the side of the road only because they were in a hurry. But I wonder if perhaps they refused to help him because he was so bruised, beaten, and covered with blood that they were unable to determine if he was a Jew, Gentile, or Samaritan. I wonder, with that being the case, if they decided they were not going to take the chance or run the risk of compounding their contamination by touching a foreigner. I don't have a definitive answer to that question, but I do know that there's no race or color factor when the blood of Jesus has been applied to your life. Because all God sees is the blood. And this is what eventually happened down in Egypt long after the death of Joseph and the Pharaoh who put him in charge of all of the affairs of Egypt except himself. Abraham's descendants were multiplied exponentially, thus posing the possibility that they would soon overrun Egypt. But a Pharaoh arose who knew not Joseph and felt no allegiance to his descendants and therefore put them in slavery under hard taskmaster. Yet the more they afflicted them, the more they increased in number. This prompted the new Pharaoh to make a law or write an edict that all Hebrew boys were to be put to death immediately at birth. Nevertheless, God raised up a deliverer named Moses and sent him to tell Pharaoh, let my people go. But Pharaoh, in his arrogance, made a serious mistake by asking, who is this God that I should obey him and let the people, the very backbone of our free labor, go? Who is it? So God decided that he could show him better than he could tell him who he was. He began to show him who he was by destroying all of the false gods with a series of plagues. He sent one plague after another plague. He sent flies, and he sent frogs, he sent lice. He sent the blood to cover all the water. Frogs in the kitchen, frogs in the bedroom, frogs in the hallway, frogs in the streets, frogs everywhere. Flies came, and flies were all in all the food. Flies everywhere. And God challenged every god and defeated every god. He sent one plague after another until finally he sent the death angel through the land at around midnight with instruction to kill every firstborn, whether animal or human, that was not behind the blood. And God brought Israel out with a high hand and with great substance, just as he had promised Abraham. Abraham had indeed long since died, but God was yet very much alive. And he remembered his covenant promise he had made to his friend and to his servant. This brings us partly back to our text tonight. These people knew all about what God had done on their behalf in bringing them out of Egypt. They didn't understand the why, but they should have understood that. The psalmist proclaimed in Psalm 103 and verse 7, he made known his ways unto Moses, his acts unto the children of Israel. In other words, God told the Jewish people what he wanted them to do. But he told Moses both the what and the why he wanted them to do it. The psalmist says in Psalm 25 and 14, the secret of the Lord is with them that fear him, and he will show them his covenant. God had shown Moses what he wanted Israel to do. He wanted them to take the land he had given them the deed to. He had already shown them that he had their backs. He had already made known to them that the land would well worth the effort and well worth the fight. According to the words of the prophet Ezekiel, in Ezekiel chapters 20 verse 6, according to the New Living Translation, God had already surveyed the land. It already reached the conclusion. God said, I took a solemn oath that day that I would bring them out of Egypt to a land that I discovered and explored for them, a good land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the best of all lands anywhere. No land, nowhere was like this land. Yet they were not satisfied with God's report, nor his survey. Therefore, they demanded that Moses send spies from among them, according to Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 22. Moses said, and ye came near unto me, every one of you, and said, we will send men before us, and they shall set us out the land, and bring us word again what way we must go up, and in what city we shall come. And as you know, 12 spies were sent. And all agreed on the fruitfulness of the land. They even brought back some pomegranate, figs, and a single cluster of grapes on a pole carried between two men, to preserve the bunch and keep it from being bruised before they had a chance to show it as proof of the land's fruitfulness to Israel. They also agreed on the strength of the walled cities and the size of the people. They agreed on practical matters. And this brings us full circle back to the text. Well, somebody may wonder, why did I go all the way back to Abraham and walk through the chronology of his seed to the text? The answer is simple. In theology, that is what is known as the law of first mentioning, which says if you want to understand the true definition and purpose of a thing, look back to its first mentioning. By looking back, we are able to ascertain that Israel taking possession of the land is not the result of a mere foolish dream or idea conceived in the mind of a man, but rather it is the covenant promise of the Lord God Jehovah. God gave them the deed to the land long before they were brought forth from the womb of their mother. Nevertheless, they would have to be willing to accept with the deed their responsibility, which is to take possession of the land. You do know you can have the deed and still not have the property. But there they stood on the threshold of the land with the deed in hand, trembling in fear, doubt and unbelief. There they stood murmuring instead of taking the necessary action. It is like waiting for years on your dream house. And the day finally arrives where you stand in front of that house, not only with the key, but the deed in hand. And rather than going in and taking possession, you stand there murmuring. It is like being engaged to the person of your heart desire. And on the day of the wedding, instead of going before the officiant, you stand on the outside, murmuring and finding fault. It is like finally getting a job you've been wanting on the first day of the work. You refuse to get up and go to work. But this is precisely what the majority report did. They said, we are not able to go up against these people, for they are stronger than we are. That is the majority report. The majority had a perspective problem. They saw not only how big the enemy was, but they also saw in their minds how little they were, and trembled in fear and unbelief. In their fear and unbelief, they unwittingly prayed a prayer that God answered. This is what they said, and I'm paraphrasing. We wish God would have allowed us to die in Egypt, or at least die in the wilderness. These 10 majority spies threw cold water on the very suggestion of taking the land, emphasizing the strength of the adversary, emphasizing the strength of the enemy, while minimizing their own strength with God, considering themselves as grasshoppers in comparison to those enemies that were before them. Even Israel never learned, and years later, when they had to face Goliath, they stood before Goliath as a majority and saw a man too big to hit, until David came up as a minority and saw a man too big to miss. They didn't want to have a testimony of having fought a good fight. So God answered their prayer by letting every person 20 years and older die in the wilderness, except Caleb and Joshua, the two men who made a minority report, the two men who stood firm by their conviction. Caleb and Joshua didn't die because they believed God. Caleb tried to calm the people down and convince them to believe the report of the Lord. Both Caleb and Joshua tried to convince the people by saying in Numbers 14 and 8, if the Lord delight in us, then he will bring us into this land and give it us, a land flowing with milk and honey. Joshua's name means the Lord delivers, or Jehovah saved. But strangely enough, Caleb's name means dawn. And beloved, that's a good name for Caleb. And if you're looking at me funny because I said that, that's a good name for him. It's only because you do not know much about a dog. When a dog gets a grip on a bone with his mouth, he won't let it go. And once Caleb got a grip in his mind, and it is hard, and his sight was on conquering Canaan, he refused to let it go. Caleb and Joshua in their minority report were determined to take possession of the land without delay. They knew the land was theirs for taking. They knew if the Lord delighted in them. They knew if their ways pleased the Lord. They knew he would make their enemies be at peace with them. They knew if they shall diligently keep all his commandments, which he commanded them to do, to love the Lord their God, to walk in all his ways, to cleave unto him. They knew then the Lord will drive out all the nations from before them. They knew that they shall possess even greater nations and mightier than themselves. They knew every place whereon the sole of their feet shall tread shall be there. They knew there shall no man be able to stand before them. For the Lord their God shall lay fear of them and the dread of them upon the land that they shall tread upon. And he had said unto them, so would he do unto them. They knew the promises of God. Therefore, 45 years later, and he stood in Canaan and before Joshua, who is now the leader. Caleb said, give me this mountain. Give me this mountain. That Moses promised when I was 40 years old. For I am just as strong now as I was then. 45 years later, 45 years has not diminished my strength. 45 years has not diminished my faith. 45 years has not diminished my confidence. 45 years has not diminished my hope. I believe the report of the Lord. And I believe it then, and I believe it now. Hallelujah. So as I close. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Whose report do you believe? The prophet Isaiah asked this in Isaiah 53 and 1. Who hath believed our report? And to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed? What report? The report of the word of the Lord. Found in Isaiah 53, 4 and 5. Surely, I said surely, he hath borne our grief and carried our sorrow. Yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgression. He was bruised for our iniquity. The chastisement of our peace is upon him. And with his stripes we are healed. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Who in Isaiah Jesus, the sinner's Savior. Jesus, the centerpiece of civilization. He's unparalleled because there's none like him. He is unprecedented. He's the lofty idea of literature in libraries around the world. Hallelujah. He's the highest personality in all philosophy. He is the absolute necessity of true theology. You cannot talk about the study of God and the move of God and leave him out. Hallelujah. For in him we live. In him we move. In him we have our being. And without him we can do nothing. Jesus, I said Jesus, is the only one qualified to offer himself as the one sacrifice forever, and then sit down on the right hand of the Father, down into heaven. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Oh, do you believe in the part of the Lord? Oh, the part. Do you believe Jesus is God's strength for the weak? Jesus is the way of escape for the tempted and tried. He sympathizes and he saves. He strengthens and sustains. He guards and he guides. He heals the sick, cleanses the leper, gives sight to the blind, tells the bedridden and the lame, rise up and walk. Hallelujah. He raised the dead. Didn't he do it? Didn't he do it? Hallelujah. Hallelujah. He was God the age. He saved the young. And he rewards the good. He beautifies the meek. Don't you do it? He is King of Kings. He is all alone. He is the great I am. He is bread when you're hungry. He's water when you're thirsty. He's rest for the weary. Hallelujah. Oh, pull the part. Do you believe? Oh, come on over here. For the table is spread and the food of the Lord is going on. Oh, come on. Come. Get weary. Come. Get broken. Come. Come on. Joy. Get over here. Help. Get over here. Love. Get over here. Deliverance. Get over here. Power. You don't hear me? I said there's power over here. Why is there power? There's power because blood, not my blood only, not your blood only. My blood is contaminated. My blood is ruined. My blood will carry me to the grave. But there is blood from the man of faith. Sinners learn beneath that blood. Lose all that guilty stain. Yes! Say I. Yes! the Clorox was a powerful force. It would get the stain out of the white and make it beautiful enough to hang outdoors on the line where it wouldn't be ashamed. But now, what they got called Clorox don't have the same power, don't have the same force, don't have the same cleanliness, but the blood. Shut